Okay, we continue with our series of selections from the HaChaim HaKadosh on Parshas HaShavua, and this series is dedicated for Lirfua Shlema for Ariel, רינה, Bas Esther, for Shlema, for Nefesh Guf, בתוך שער Chayei Yisrael, תקף ומייד. So the pasuk says, "Vatama Sarah bekiryas arba Hebron be'eretz Canaan, vayavo Avram mispol l'sarav livkosa." And Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron, in Eretz Canaan, and Avram came to eulogize her. So the questions on the pasuk are actually very, very self-evident, right? First of all, you don't even need to talk about the location at all. The pasuk could easily start, and finish, go with the beginning and the end. Vatama Sarah, Vayovo Avram lispol l'sarav livkosa. Sarah died, and Avram came to eulogize Sarah and to cry for her. That's the way it could easily go. So you don't have to mention the location at all. But if you're going to mention the location, for whatever reason, right? Just say she died by Kiryat Arba. No, but Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron, which is in Eretz Canaan. For what purpose? Why, that Kiryat Arba is also called Hebron, and by the way, they're in Eretz Canaan, which we know that's where they were living. What is going on, right? That is the questions of the HaChaim, which are actually quite self-evident. They're very straightforward, glaring questions that need to be resolved. Okay, so now to fully understand and appreciate what the HaChaim is going to teach us, and you say that these psukim, these words in the middle of the pasuk are alluding to very, very fundamental lessons, really big stuff. But we have to give a little bit of a hakdama, and actually the hakdama that I'm giving you right now is a quick crash course on a whole essay that I have on my Sefer Bereshis. It's part of the Evan Shasiya series, but this particular volume on Bereshis is called Machol HaShulamis, named in honor, I should say, of my mother, Alea Shalom. And on the first entry on Chayei Sarah is on these ideas that are really necessary to, appreciate what the HaChaim wants to see in these seemingly extra and redundant words, seemingly, but the big message he sees in them. So you have to take a look that 2,000 years of world history passes before Avram Avinu and Sarah, on their mission. So in course of those 2,000 years, which is the whole Parshas Bereshis, Parshas Noach, go through 20 generations, not anything about people's domestic lives. For most of the just say he lived and he died, he lived and he died, Don't even talk about the wives. You don't hear from the women at all. The only time you hear from a woman before Sarah Imenu is Chava says very few lines to the Nachash, maybe one or two psukim, and she also says one or two lines to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then we don't hear from her ever again. Don't hear from a woman for 20 generations till Sarah speaks her mind plenty, right? But we also don't see anything about people's domestic lives, how they made their money or the trials and travails that they faced. Avram Avinu talks about how he faced off with Paro and the 4 kings and Avimelech and how he made his money and, and the disputes that he had and plenty of dialogue between him and Sarah. And it reaches a new height, if that's the best word for it, in this week's Parsha, where it's the first recorded Levaya, Hesped, and Kvura. The only time presumably everyone was buried prior to that point, and all dead people were buried because it's this best way to dispose of the body. Right? But this was like the first honorary, buying a burial place that's befitting, and a levaya and a hesped. First real act of final respects to the dead. Right? Number one. Number two, first recorded business deal. Avram buying the Sadeh from Ephron. So it's commerce and final respects, is the dimension that gets added. So with Abraham and Sarah, we have, the women speak again. There's domestic life that the Torah actually describes. And then in this week's Parsha, we add, also final respects and commerce. Okay? So now, I'm not going to say everything I say in that essay, and my sefer is available on Amazon. Well, you can also get it from me personally. I have a few extra copies if you want. But in a nutshell, and this is a very important background knowledge to appreciate the HaChaim we're about to give over. Right? In a nutshell, the fundamental difference between the Jewish people, which starts with Avraham Avinu, right, and all the tzaddikim that walked the earth beforehand, Chanoch, Mesushelach, Noach, right, Shem, Aver, right, big people. Right? The fundamental difference that starts with the avos, which lead into the Jewish people, right, is bringing about kedusha in olam hazeh, that's globally, and in the guf, in the individual. Who's like the best example of the tzaddikim that lived and served before Avraham Avinu? Shem ben Noach. It's a big Rosh Yeshiva, right? And he was Malki Tzedek. So the Torah describes him as who Kohen Lekel Elyon. He is the Kohen to the God above. God above. Interesting thing about Shem ben Noach, or for that matter, Noach. Right? They didn't go out and preach. They didn't try to change the world. Anyone who wanted to hear what they have to say could come to them, right? Because they felt that the world is unchangeable. The world is a physical world. And Hashem is Kel Elyon, the God beyond. And to have connection with Hashem, it's a transcendental experience. You have to, get out of your body and withdraw from life, right? To have an encounter with Kedusha. So you got to withdraw from the world, and you got to withdraw from the body to get to the God who's beyond. Okay? And when he meets Avraham Avinu, he immediately sees the difference in terms of how Avraham Avinu is going to affect destiny. Baruch Avram lekel elyon kone shamayim va'aretz. Bless Avram is the God who owns heaven and earth. Heaven referring to the physical heavens, right? And earth, right? He sees how Avram is going to change history. The Jewish people change history by revealing Hashem in the world, which that's in the world. And in the individual, it's that there's divinity, there's ruchnius, even in the guf, that the neshama shines through the guf, and they're equal partners in the mitzvahs. Right? And that's why everyone who gets the mitzvah of bris milah, right? That's kedusha and guf. And all our mitzvahs are all avoda begashmias, right? You can only do your mitzvahs with a body, and the dead don't do mitzvahs, right? So there's kedusha in physicality, generally speaking. So it's how we affect the world, but we affect the world by first affecting ourselves and putting kedusha in the body, and that includes in all our earthly affairs. B'chol drachecha da'ehu sheyu kol ma'asecha l'shem shamayim. You have to look, see an aspect of how you can serve Hashem in anything you do. Eat l'shem shamayim, sleep l'shem shamayim. Everything physical should be l'shem shamayim. Right, so you make a mitzvah of everything you do, and that means you involve the body in ruchnius, and therefore the neshama will shine through the body, and the body will start evolving and become more spiritual, and ultimately become worthy of immortality, of tchias hamesim. The body's becoming to absorb from the ora neshama by virtue of the mitzvahs that they do together. And so the body starts absorbing from the Or HaNeshama, and that's what makes the body deserve to ultimately be resurrected and become immortal. And that's in the world also. This world, Shitafeshdin Have Alma, V'chad Choruv, Usof El Shon, Chosu Mechadish Olam, but this world is going to last for 6,000 years. Climate change is real. It's just not happening fast enough, right? So 6,000, then seventh millennium is, when the polar caps melt, it's water everywhere. And then the 8th millennium, there's cosmic, Tchias Mason. So the individual and for the world, because it's the effect that Am Yisrael has on the world. Putting Kedusha into Gashmias makes the world worthy of, being close renovation, then reopened and refurbished, right, reconstituted as Olam Haba. Right? Olam Haba is not where we go after we die. That's called Olam Neshamas. It's Gan Eden, but it's not Olam Haba. Olam Haba hasn't happened yet. This world becomes Olam Haba. It undergoes its own Tchias HaMesim and becomes Olam Haba, parallel to what happens to us in body. Okay, with this background, so this is the pivotal shift of Avram Avinu, and that's why his mundane affairs are holy, right? They're not mundane at all. And Sarai Menu, Ishto Kegufo, in the integrated unit, it's all Zohar in this week's Parsha. In the integrated unit of man and wife, man is more connected than the Neshama, and the woman is more connected. The Guf Besod Halach of Ishto Kegufo. There's Kedushas HaGuf, so now the women talk again. The women have an active role. All right, it's something to think about. Take a look at that essay of mine. All right, so this is, and this is just background knowledge that you need to know to appreciate where the HaChaim is coming from right now, and everything just wants to load up on these seemingly extra words in the pasuk of Bekiryat Arba, Hi Hebron, Be'eretz Canaan. Right? These 4 extra words that seemingly the pasuk could get along without any of them. And if you want to say the location where she died, 1 out of them, it would have been enough. Okay, so says, with this background, understanding the shift that there is with Avram and Sarah, right, which is ultimately, the legacy of the Jewish people to restore Kedusha Saguf that was lost because of Chet Adam Rishon, right? And the Kedusha and Gashmias that was lost because Arura Adama Ba'avurecha, which is also a result of Chet Adam Rishon, right? So, Vatoma Sarah, Matzara is a tzadekis, right? So why did she die? You understand why a Russia dies? Because, he can't die too soon. I got to get rid of him. He's bad. It's bad for him to be alive because he's doing bad stuff with his life. It's bad for the world for him to be alive. But sorry, Menu's a tzadekis, right? She's only doing good with her life. So why does she die? Bekiryas Arba, alluding to the city of 4. What's the city that's made out of 4? The body. That the body, even though she's putting kedusha into the guf, but that's all potential. It's only actualized with Tchias HaMesim, at least building up credit for Tchias HaMesim. But the body is made out of material that doesn't last forever. At least the combination doesn't last forever. Anything made out of the 4 elements, now their concept of elements is different than ours. That would say earth, water, air, and fire. And, Marshiva of Yaakov Armi used to say it very well. What they meant was more like solid, liquid, gas, energy. That's what they meant. And but anything, as the Rambam writes, anything made out of these 4 earthly states of existence don't last, right? Things that are, you'd say, could last forever are made of finer stuff, right? But these 4 elements, 4 states of existence, anything made out of them, nothing lasts. Nothing on our earth lasts. Any contraption put together will eventually fall apart. And the body included, because the body has not become immortal yet. We're building up credit for immortality. And that's why even the biggest tzaddikim have to die because of Chet Adam Rishon, because the tzaddikim at least build up credit and potential energy that's actualized with Tchias HaMesim. Rishonim don't even have that. Now, Rishonim are even worse. Rishonim b'chayei, including Mesim, Rishonim even in their own lives are called dead because their body has nothing to do with their soul. The fact that the soul is stuck in the body. And Medrash Shochar Tov says, I can't remember, is it Kapitel Samach Beis? I think it is. You have to check me on that. that by the Rishayim, the neshama just wants to leave, and Hashem has to force it to stay. That's right. Rishayim Korim Mason, because their body and soul have nothing to do with each other. They're even dead in their own lifetime. Tzadikim b'misosam Korim Chaim. So even their death are called alive because in the course of his lifetime, the neshama and guf built a bond, and then and the guf absorbed from the neshama, and the neshama indeed hovers over the body and protects the body. Sod havla the garmi, and even the nefesh is with the body for until all the flesh is consumed. That's why we make a matzeva. It's a place for the nefesh that sits with the body, and even after all the flesh is consumed, and the neshama goes to a higher place, there's still havla the garmi left behind to make sure there's something left of the body to regenerate and become, immortal by tchias amesim. That's sort of tzadikim v'isas kurayim. So vatamas Sarah b'kiryas. The only reason why she dies because kiryas arba, because her body's made up of these elements that anything made out of them just doesn't last forever. This time around, right? So that's the reason she died. She didn't die because of any shortcoming of hers. So vatamas Sarah, why b'kiryas arba, for the because of because of Kiryas Arba, her body's made up of these 4 earthly elements, so it's just not built to last. It's the only reason why she died. But he Chevron. But even though she's made up of these earthly elements, that's why her body didn't last. Right? He Chevron, there's still chibur, there's still connection. There's still connection to the neshama, because even in death they do not part. And the Zohar in this week's Parsha says that everything that happens between Avram and Sarah, crying for her and attending her levaya, that's what the neshama does for the guf of a tzaddik. The neshama tzaddik goes to the levaya of the guf and says a hesped on the guf and sticks with the guf, and like we said in various. So he Chevron, she's a tzaddikas, tzaddikim b'misosam kruim chaim. So even though she's b'kiras arba, he Chevron, but she still is chibur, right? Besod tzadikim b'misosam kruim chaim, right? So tzadikim when they're death are called alive. But how do you reach such a level? Wonderful level, which the Or HaChaim brings in that just like these 4 states of existence can, transition into each other. A little bit of earth can become water. A little bit of water could become air. A little bit of air could become fire, which means a little bit of solid could become liquid. A little bit of liquid could become gas. A little bit of gas can become energy. And it goes even further that even, it can even go that a little bit of gashrus becomes ruchnius, right? Right? How do you like what fuels that tremendous, transformation that the body becomes even in this world, it becomes quasi-spiritual in full actuality after Chesed, but even in this world, what's the secret of what fuels it? We say you do mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are physical actions. What's the difference between shaking a lulav and shaking a broom? And how about if a guy would shake a lulav? Right? So one of the key factors of what makes Torah and mitzvahs, even our physical actions, make this amazing transformation that cause the body to evolve is be'eretz Canaan, because of Eretz Canaan. Eretz Canaan, Eretz Canaan, when it's called Eretz Canaan, it's referring to the bad nations that are there, the bad midas that need to be defeated, right? The evil that needs to be defeated. And if I could refer everyone to, if you've subscribed to this channel, I did a redo on the address I gave by my grandson's bris. Go there. We speak more about kibush arts. That's cosmic bris milah. Cutting away the 7 nations is like cutting away at the big number of 70 nations. So, it's cosmic bris milah, right? So Eretz Canaan is a place which is full of evil that needs to be defeated, right? It's and go from being Eretz Canaan to being Eretz Yisrael. So much so that when the Torah warns you against promiscuity and not imitating the God, it says, don't do like the Canaanim. Don't be promiscuous like them. Of not imitating the Goyim in general was said in particular about the people of Canaan. And from there we learn out that it applies to all nations. So Eretz Canaan represents the place of Yetzer Hara, basically. Place of Yetzar, place of bad midas that need tikkun. So be'eretz Canaan, because we fight our Yetzer. Through Eretz Canaan that we fight, as the president would say, right? we resist our Yetzar. Mochemes HaYetzer is what causes the evolution. Now, you know, all our mitzvahs have to be done by free will. And the Yetzar tries to stop us from doing mitzvahs. Says the fuel behind mitzvahs, that they cause the body to evolve, is the Mochemes HaYetzer Shabo, the fighting the Yetzer, is what gives the metaphysical quality to mitzvahs, right? Which means a frightening thing. He ends the thought there, right? That's how Sarah, she was engaged in Mochemes HaYetzer, and that's how she's zoche, to Kedushas HaGuf, which she exemplifies, and that's what the Zohar says this week's parsha. The guf of a tzaddik is called Sarah, Kedain Sarah Ikri. The engine behind what makes mitzvahs have that metaphysical quality is Mochemes HaYetzer. If you always give in to your Yetzirah, there's nothing spiritual about your mitzvah. You have to do your mitzvah mitoch, choosing it against Atzas HaYetzer. And that's the fuel that gives the mitzvahs, the power, right, to have that metaphysical quality, that it causes the guf to evolve and to build up energy for Tchias HaMesim and bond it to the neshama, even in this world. So it's a frightening message that he says, if a person lives a frum lifestyle with zero Mochemes HaYetzer, it's just too easy to be frum. No Mesiras Nefesh, plenty of mahadrim food to eat. If a person has to look for the stressing point, be frum outside of his comfort zone, because that's what is the fuel behind mitzvahs that make them not just physical, but metaphysical actions. We have to seek always, and when it gets too easy, we have to crank it up. Always be at the stressing point, the nakuda of Mochemes HaYetzer. And by the way, that's also necessary for understanding Torah Sein of Amelus Torah. Always got to push yourself to the stressing point. That stressing point is that resistance of the Yetzer, right? Which is also what we do when we say eat l'shem shamayim, sleep l'shem shamayim. Don't take more than what you need. Exactly what you need, and the rest, which means your meal you cut short, only what you need, to be healthy. Your sleep you cut short, only what you need, to be of clear mind, to learn Torah and do your duties. You have to push things to that stressing point, and that's what it's called Maschal Shemaim, and that's certainly with our mitzvahs. There has to be an element of Mochemes HaYetzer to empower the mitzvahs to make the Or Neshama shine and to bond the guf onto Neshama. This is what the HaChaim sees in the words, Fatama Sarah, why did she die? Because she's made out of these finite materials, not for any fault of her own. She's made out of finite materials that have not yet, actualized their potential to become spiritual. Okay. But even though she died, Chevron, and she's still mechubar, she's still connected to her neshama. Now, how do you get that madrega? Be'eretz Canaan, through fighting the evils of the world, fighting the Yetzer Hara, fighting the bad midas. That is the fuel that makes mitzvahs work, that get you to be zocha to that madrega. May these words be a schos for shame of Ariel, Rina, Bat Esther, for force hanefesh, urforce aguf. Right, betach shar Chol Yisrael, tekef umiyad.